Hey, party people, it's Cliff. Good morning. I got a call this morning on the only condo I have that the AC repairman needs to replace a fire duct something or other to prevent fires. And I'm like, all right, go ahead and do it. How much is it going to be? $700. So, that's the joy of home ownership or rental ownership. This guy, what in the world are these guys doing? My gosh. That's why I get out of my place like super slow, like a cat going into a new room. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, all right, $700, no problem, because I've taken precautions. And basically, there's one real estate guy. He said, owns a whole bunch of stuff, and he said that usually a rental will take up about half of the proceeds to going into maintenance, and that's excluding the mortgage. But the good news is that usually with these rental companies, or actually when I say usually with these rental companies, I'm only talking about one in particular with my experience, which is not a lot. But they take that $700 out of the rental proceeds. I don't pay for it directly. And that's how you kind of get out of the way. So the only thing I'm responsible for is paying the HOA fee, which I hate HOAs, but they exist. And, that's a whole nother situation. And the mortgage. And that's it. And so if I can cover that, then everything else is good to go. But what else did I want to talk about? I wanted to say something about, filling the air, filling it with time. Oh man. What is normal? Normal is not somebody in their car talking to a camera. That's not normal. Maybe it's normal today. Maybe it's a part of the, the new trend, the new fad. But no, like, normal is boring, and boring is progress. The video I did yesterday is that you always want to be like, one foot in front of the other. Today's a new day. We're going to go into work. We're going to do about 3 things, and then we're going to come home. And, we'll go see, tonight's movie night. I forget what movie we're seeing. It was one that I chose with a group of friends that I'm with. So we'll do that. But yeah, normal, like, when you're driving along the road and you see a car accident, you stop and look. Why? Because you haven't seen it. When you're on a walk and you see something that's out of the ordinary, that's not normal, and you stop and watch to look at it. And it's this, and I guess like social media and YouTube and movies and video games and sports, events like concerts, like all the different types of venues that hold entertainment are trying to do one thing, and they're trying to be not normal, which is a far cry away from this channel, which is trying to be, a reflective, a thought-provoking, a thought-reflective, thinking into a normal person's life, which is why nobody watches any of these, is because it's normal, Yeah, I was thinking a couple of thoughts where, like all the news, all of the entertainment, all of everything that, I think Jon Stewart had a good show last night where he talked about the Havana virus, or the Havaka virus, or whatever the virus is called, where, a whole slew of experts for the last 3 days, scientists and doctors and all that, they basically said, like, no, you don't have to worry, because this kind of virus is non-transmissible. It's not like COVID, where you could just, like, you just look at somebody and get it. And then the media, bless their heart, is trying to drum up all of this drama and, danger and sex and, conflict. And, well, that's entertainment for you. News isn't news anymore. It's entertainment. And I suppose there is a world in which, like the Donald Trumps of the world who cry fake news. My sister also cries fake news. They're not they're not entirely accurate when they say that. It's not fake news. It's just that there's so much news out there that you really have to see. When somebody says fake news, and I'm talking through this with my sister and like her, Trumpyism and all of that stuff. And what she means, what she really means is that she, whatever news she looks at, she doesn't feel like liking, she just completely ignores it, right? But and that's what people saying fake news will actually like. That's their thought process, right? Is that, oh, it's fake news. It's more like, I don't need to agree with that. I don't want to like, when they say fake news, or what they're saying is that, me personally, I disagree with that like type of reporting. And the way that I look at the news is that it's not fake news. It's just like, why is this news? Why news? Why news? Why is this person like reporting on this particular topic in this particular situation, right? Why is this article like popping up and saying things and saying whatever? And the unfortunate thing is like, I'll scroll through 20, 30, 40 news pieces on the and then I have to think like on Google News, because it's an aggregate. And then a lot of YouTube people are using ground news, which I also think is, you need a subscription for. But here's my theory on, oh, that guy has a 666 license plate. That's funny. But here's my take on like, why news? Why is this news happening? Why is this person writing this report? Why is this website like promoting this kind of thing? And you can kind of tell, right? You like celebrity news, that's drama, that's gossip. News that about like local laws that are being passed, that's usual things. Politicians. And the idea about like why news, or the thing about it is that it's really a filter. Like your mind is really a filter. And like, let me put it to you this way, right? Let's pretend that you don't read any news at all, but you go to a website, or you talk with friends, or you talk with people at work. Eventually, the more important news gets to you. It gets to you either through a really small program that you listen to, a YouTuber that you follow, or a TikToker, that they talk about their subjects. And what happens when you sort of pull back and you don't actively stay in the news, and then you pull back, you're really like not getting into the details of news that doesn't matter, right? Like what is it, like the cream rises to the top, or the best like all rise to the top, like in beer talk. And if there is news that is important, if there is news that is like, worthy of attention, then that news gets all the way up to the very top. And eventually you learn about the big news thing that's happening during the day. And then everything else, everything else falls to the wayside. Now, unless you're a specific person who's in a specific field, then you might keep up with the news that's in your specific field. Like, I go to deadline.com every once in a while to check out what's happening in Hollywood. It's normal. That's how I do it. You might do something else. My dad was a geologist, and he subscribed to a whole bunch of geology journals, that reported on different kinds of news that was happening out there in the world. Makes sense. So all the news, all the social media, it's not normal. It is curtailed, not curtailed. What's the word for it? It's curated. That's what it is. It's curated for you. And when you understand like all the different nuances about what happens with news, and the why behind it, I call it why news, not fake news, but why news, then you'll understand that you'll understand that you don't have to worry. Like, it's like you don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to. It's not you don't have to think too much, but it's you can take relief in the fact that a lot of the news out there is sensational, is designed to get you like riled up and get you emotional, so you can make a decision, an irrational decision that leads you down a different path, right? I mean, like buying a car, is kind of like this irrational thing that, well, window shopping is one, right? So, oh, I'm walking down the street, oh, look at that thing in the window, I want to buy it because I want it. That's amazing. And car dealers, I remember, when I bought this car, I've only had 3 cars, right? I've had the one that my parents gave me. I had another one that I bought like totally used in North Carolina. That was a 2006 Honda Accord, which then I gave to my dad. And then I have this one. I have 3 cars in my life, and I don't need anything else. And so, I follow a couple of bloggers, I guess, or YouTube guys who basically, they pull a whole bunch of TikToks off of the internet, and they say like, bad financial decisions. And it's like, people buying too much car for what they can afford. And, it saddens me that people are susceptible to that like emotional high when they're like, oh yeah, like a new car and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be awesome. And, or even like buying rental properties, just to rent them out, or just for Airbnb, like what happened in the pandemic, or renting them out on Turo. And you're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to make so much money and I'm going to do this and do that. And it's like, well, okay, as long as you have those expectations, as long as your interest rate is not over 10%, which some of it eventually was. But eventually, like you get into a spot where, like I feel like bad decisions, or at least like emotional decisions, lead you to spending more money. Emotional decisions lead you to more irrational choices, obviously. And when you make those irrational choices based on, all the things that are going on, rather than basically having like rather than sort of developing a filter to filter out all of the noise. And to develop that filter, you have to just detect bullshit. And in order to detect bullshit, was one of the videos I made earlier, is that you have to learn, you have to study, you have to do things that are very boring and very like I gotta watch out for this guy who's on the bike. But consistency, being slow, not reacting, it just relax. Like, if the news is important, it'll get to you in some form or fashion. You don't need to doom scroll on it. There was a really great example where, if it's called like the danger of priorities or whatever it is, right? And say you jump out of a plane. Okay, all right, and you pull the cord on your parachute, and your parachute doesn't open yet. But at the same time, you have shoelaces that are untied. And it's like, well, do you tie your shoelaces as you're falling out of the sky and be like, oh, that shoelace, it's a problem, or do you say, hey, I need to pull my emergency chute, or I need to figure out why this parachute isn't opening, or else I'm going to die. And that's the priorities. And I feel like people sometimes mistake like getting out their parachute with like tying their shoes, so don't tie your shoes. That's the thing. There you go. That's my short for the day. Oh man, I gotta spend so much time with these damn shorts. I don't want to though. No, this is gonna be super simple. I'm not gonna edit anything. You know what I'll probably do though? I'll probably do like one video on this, which is like the main channel, or like, the main thing, and I'll do like an editing whatchamacallit. I'll make it very, very flashy and very like Hollywood and all that stuff. Like maybe at one point. Oh, we got a yellow light. Should we go? Yes, we should, because everybody else is going, and I'm like halfway out in the middle of the road. But oh, we got a fire engine. What's the fire engine guy doing? Just the lights are off. We're right next to the firehouse, though. And that's another thing I take great comfort in is, whenever you see an emergency vehicle and it's coming down the road, like, everybody pulls off to the side. Everybody. Doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't matter who you are. It's one of those things where, just in that, like, little moment, you're like, all right, there's an emergency happening. There's an emergency happening. This emergency vehicle has to get through. And everybody who's driving pulls over to the side. And you got to think like, well, that shows empathy, If people didn't care about that emergency, or people didn't care about that thing getting through, nobody would react. Everybody would just do like their normal day. Everybody would just be like, I don't care about that emergency, but they do care. So that's what I take satisfaction in, is that, as drivers driving around, we're all like, hey, if there's an emergency vehicle, get out of the way. They got to do work, they got to stop an emergency, whatever's happening. But I'm almost about work right now, but that's my thing, right? Unexpected stuff. Instead of fake news, it's why news. Why is this news? Why is this thing happening? Why is this news there? And then if you can answer the question why, then you'll know a little bit more than somebody else who's just reading it for fun or reading it to get emotional. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good day. Until next time, see yas.